Hello and welcome to the JTrain podcast. This is JTrain, Jared Freid, coming to you live from Richmond, Virginia. That's right. Every Wednesday is a Chit Chat Wednesday where I sit down with a comedian, a friend, an expert. Today, I got two of those, and they're a friend. They are an expert, and I'm going to give them expert in politics, the political scene that might scare the shit out of someone who just turned on a podcast that rarely delves into political spectrums, but I'm so excited to have them here. They are running for the congressional seat for the 6th District of Massachusetts. Daniel Coe, thank you for coming on the show.
JTrain, what is up, man?
What a pleasure. We go way back to let people know about our, I'm not just bringing a random person running for a congressional seat on the show. What is that? I mean, I guess, yeah, because I'm the idiot. I'm happy. I'm okay being the idiot. Because
look, man, you touched on something which is important, which is especially people in DC, they suck at explaining everything. And they use like big language and don't actually break it down. And so in the case of the House, there are 435 members of the House. They each represent different segments of the country. Each seat is roughly 800,000 people they represent. And so in Massachusetts, the 6th district represents a segment of that. And my member of Congress, Seth Moulton, is running for Senate against Ed Markey, who is the senator there. And you can't run for both at once. You have to give up your seat to do that. And so it's an open primary. And for me, as somebody who has worked in the White House as well as on the town of Andover Select Board, I've just seen how government can work best for people at the highest level. It's giving good health care, making sure people have clean drinking water, people have affordable prescription drug prices, and at the most local level, it's making sure that the town doesn't go bankrupt and that it's actually on a healthy financial path, so you don't have to raise taxes on people. And then for me, as a father of 2 German, Irish, Italian, Lebanese, Korean, American kids, I'm lucky as a family that comes from Korean Lebanese immigrants that I was welcomed into a community that cared a lot about that. And I just want to make sure that my kids have the same thing.
I mean, your kids are literally the whole list of things to check off. That's hilarious and awesome.
It is.
Because here's the thing. I'm wondering if it's my age or if it's the times we live in.
Dude, we're getting old, bro. So
we're getting old. It's probably my age, but like, am I noticing more political things, or is it just more political right now? Like the idea that like the selectmen would elicit, because I bring you on because you and I met. You were the chief of staff at Huffington Post. A mutual friend of ours worked at Huffington Post, put us in touch with each other. I was trying to write stuff and put stuff on the website to try and get a following myself for comedy. You're with Huffington Post. I'm like, come out to my shows, check out what I'm doing. And that's kind of how we started getting in contact with one another. And then I'm like watching from one angle. I'm sure you're watching my stuff as I'm putting it up over the years. And I'm watching you, and I feel like I hold the rookie card for you. Like, I've watched you, you're working in the White House, you're in D.C., you're doing all these amazing things. You went to Harvard business. Like, I know your wife, Amy, you guys have been at shows of mine when they were at, bars. And like, I'm like super proud with what you're doing, but which always, I think of you a lot when it comes to political talk, because I'm like, there's someone that disagrees with whatever platform you're running, and you're going up to be the selectman for this one area of Massachusetts. And there's someone that like is like kind of making you out to be the devil, which is like so crazy to me, because like knowing you're like that. If I disagreed with you on something, I would still know you as the person and go, no, that's Daniel. He's a good guy. Like, I'm sure his doing what he thinks is in the best interest of the group, which is hard to do because that's not individuals. You're doing what's best for the group at whole, which sometimes leaves someone a little worse off than they would have been if you're attending to certain groups. So what do you like to you as with political aspirations? Like, how do you bridge that? How do you tell someone who like hears you mention healthcare and they're like, no, he's one of those. You know what I mean? Like,
But
because those people
no,
are
I
out
mean,
there. But do we
it's
even
a,
care about those people who are so emotionally distressed by hearing healthcare? Do we care? Or do they matter?
it's a
You know
great
what I mean?
question. It's a great question. I think it's why people are so. Can I drop f-bombs on this? Is this
You
an
can
f-bomb
say
appropriate?
whatever the damn you want. No, you can say whatever the fuck you want. Yeah, you're
I
good to
mean,
go.
we're for Massachusetts. So look. This is why people are so fucking sick of politics in general, right? On either
Right.
side of the aisle, because it's so hyperbolic in the way you go, oh, they're gonna do this, or you're gonna get that, or whatever. That people are just like, these people are acting like kids. Like, we were raised, by our parents that, if you disagree with someone, you work it out, right? Like, you don't be a
Right.
bully on the schoolyard, all that stuff. The amount of immaturity that happens in DC on both sides of the aisle, candidly, throwing ad hominem attacks, like personal attacks on people, just like shouting at people, is not what we were taught when we were 6 years old to do. And so I think that's
Right.
the reason why half the country, even the most contentious election, half the country stays home, because they just don't, they think that this is not even speaking to me. And I think both sides have an issue. What I think has made it even worse is that with social media, and you know this better than anyone else, algorithms reward division, right? They reward
Right.
that aspect. And it's just how it is that people want to get the clicks, they want to get the likes. And the cheap way to do that is to personally attack other people, because people
Right.
will retweet it, whatever, it'll make news. And that is just, when you have 435 people, as I said before, you have this temptation to become that kind of caricature of yourself. Like, I think a lot of people genuinely get into politics because they want to help people. I care about, when I was working in town, I care a lot about getting a good restaurant in the town, because, as everyone knows, when they grow up, there's a couple restaurants in your town where everyone goes to, and if that were to go away, it would be a big hit to the town. I know it sounds silly, but it's really
Right.
important, right?
No, but that makes it more relatable to me,
It makes
like
it more
the
relatable. And
town
then,
version.
but then people get to DC, and like, they get invited to go on TV, and they get invited to, like, they see their account grow, and they're like, okay, how can I make my account grow more? Well, if you throw a haymaker at your
Right.
Republican opponent or Democratic opponent, so I think that has caused a division beyond what was typical. Just like, I disagree with
Daniel,
you
let
on an
me
issue.
let me stop you for a second, because if anyone's like, "Well, that's just politics speak," that's the same for comedy. I see it with comedy where it's like you'll see a comic who's pretty good and they don't really have an audience, and then suddenly they go over whatever line exists.
Yep.
And they get people defending them to no ends, and they get people attacking them to no ends. And you can see the glimmer in their eye. They're like, oh, maybe I'm this guy.
Yep.
Maybe this is getting me attention. This is getting me, replies. This is getting me followers. Okay. And that's the incentive. And now the incentive isn't to be a good comedian, it's to do that again. Fall is here, along with cooler nights, heartier meals, and the craving for something warm and satisfying. That's where HelloFresh comes in. HelloFresh brings comforting chef-designed recipes and fresh seasonal ingredients right to your door. Already America's #1 choice for home cooking, this season HelloFresh is taking things to the next level by doubling the menu options. Now offering 100 choices every week, including new seasonal dishes and recipes from around the world. I'm such a fan of HelloFresh and the whole meal kit game, because if you're cooking for one or two, it's really hard to do the right portions. You end up wasting a lot of food, wasting a lot of money. HelloFresh is going to get you the right portions, and that's a big part with my health journey. I just want to eat the right amount, and I want to be creative. You got 3 moves. You got a salad, grilled chicken, and salmon maybe. After that, you're out of moves and you get tired of what you make, and then you go and order something that's not really great for you. HelloFresh is going to come at you with options and creative options, and it's going to be the right portion, so you're going to eat the right amount. I'm talking to myself at this point. HelloFresh, I love doing it, and the mental satisfaction of putting it together and seeing it compared to the picture that they send. I love that. Get steak and seafood recipes delivered every week for no extra cost. Eat healthier with new veggie pack recipes. So they got all the options. You're going to love it. And we're going to give you some free money. The best way to cook just got better. Go to HelloFresh.com/JTrain10FM. Go right now to get 10 free meals plus a free item for life. one per box with active subscription. Free meals applied as discount on first box. New subscribers only. Varies by plan. I mean, this is a must do. That's HelloFresh.com/JTrain10FM to get 10 free meals and free item for life.
Yeah, I mean, like, you probably feel this way too. Like, I see in comedy, what have you, like, to make a funny joke that is like genuinely people think is funny and insightful is a lot harder than to just like, make fun of someone's physical appearance that people get cheap
You're
laughs on.
you're
Right.
nailing it. You're nailing it.
And
That's and listen, that's not to say you can't make fun of someone. I always say, like, when I do The Bachelor live stream, I see people comment, like, really, they try to like play along, and my line to them is like, let's try to be funnier than mean.
yeah.
If you're funnier than mean, even the people you're making fun of go, oh, I get it, because it's
Right,
thoughtful
your joke,
and you're
your joke,
considerate.
your joke about the guys wearing 3 polos, 4 polos is funny because
Right.
everyone knows the D-bag in school who would just wear pop collars all the time and just like making a joke about it. People laugh. It's insightful. It's like Chris Rock's comedy, right? Chris Rock, you laugh because you're like, holy shit, that's a great point in general, right? It's not even
Right.
part of the reason why you laugh is because you realize it's such an insightful point that you can't help but laugh at the absurdity of it when it's characterized in that way. Similarly, in politics, like what I try to do on my podcast and things like that is just highlight why certain policies are bad. Let me give you an example. There's a big conversation about healthcare, Medicaid, and people losing their healthcare. I think that is an incredibly important argument, but people don't explain why it's so serious. And so here's the reality. They say, oh, well, people who don't work shouldn't get Medicaid. They shouldn't get benefits if you don't work. I understand that argument. But actually what happens in practice is that when you start putting up 5 or 6 different barriers to get Medicaid, people don't fill them out because they miss deadlines. They don't know. They're not trained up. Like, it's like when you all of a sudden have to like register for something new or whatever, you
Right.
get confused. And so in effect, all it does is just people give up and they just don't sign up. And then they get sick. And then at the end of the day, it actually costs the healthcare system more because people delay
Right.
treatments, they do all this stuff. And at the end of the day, we all pay for it. So what we don't do enough in government is be thoughtful and explain that. What they do instead is look at these boogeymen doing XYZ, but don't make the
Right.
case. And that hurts America, in my opinion. So like what I try to do and what I hope to do in Congress is to argue for the right things, in my opinion, but also explain why I care about it and not just use hyperbolic statements that no one understands.
No, I'm with you, and it's funny. It's like there has to be an agreement amongst the politicians to like want to explain it, because people don't want to listen. Like,
Yep.
they don't want the more thoughtful answer of like, listen, it's going to cost us this if we help people, and it'll cost us even more if you don't help. Like, that description makes sense to me. I'm listening to your description. I'm like, the easier fast food route is it is like,
Yeah.
these poor people are taking advantage. And that's like the one that like scratches an itch for people. And if a politician takes advantage of that itch that people genuinely want easier than harder, like they genuinely want, like, I don't want to have to do the math here, like, and it's like that person's now taking advantage of a very human thing, which is like, I just want to believe what I already believed. And like, it is so funny to me. I travel the country, and I want to ask you this, but I wonder, I get asked about, like, if I say I'm going somewhere, if I say I'm going to Portland, Oregon, the feedback I get about Portland, it's like all of a sudden I've entered into this shit talking, like 10-minute, like, bit this guy's doing on how bad Portland is. And then I try to say, I go, listen, I like Portland, Oregon. I think it's beautiful, and I do understand kind of what you're saying, but like, it's not hell and brimstone. And the minute I get to like, being like, well, I've been there, it's not that bad, you're kind of seeing one area, they're like, you can see that they just don't want to talk to me anymore. They're just like, I am out. Just agree with me. Do you get that a lot where you're like, here, I hear, right? Like, you're like, I hear you, and then you just watch them fade from existence.
They watch them fade from existence, and it is so frustrating because if you talk to mayors around the country, right? Well, a couple of things. First and foremost, if you know your neighbor and someone lives close to you and you build a relationship with them, like we all have neighbors who are different party affiliations, whatever.
Mm.
But if you know them and you've like see them and trust them, it like it's annoying that you disagree on that, but like you don't talk about it, or at the end of the day, you're like still human beings. Like one of my parents' best friends are Republicans. They just live next to us for 40 years.
Hmm.
And they and they're completely different parties. They just don't talk about it, and they love each other like family, right? It's so much easier when you're sitting behind a computer and you don't know the people, and a lot of these,
Right.
Twitter accounts are anonymous anyway, or bots, to just like lob haymakers and like not at all try to build a relationship, and that hurts our country. The other thing that I think Democrats fail at is we love citing statistics, but we don't show
Hmm.
empathy or like actually relate to people in every day. I mean this way, like when Trump first sent in the National Guard to DC, which I like highly disagree with.
Mm.
He people are like, oh well, crime is low in DC. It's like that is true. Statistically, that is true. Crime is down to
Right.
its lowest level in something like 30 years. And that's important to point out. But it doesn't help someone who recently had, a shooting happen in their neighborhood where their kids go to school. Or
Right.
all the way down
Right.
to like a package stolen on their stoop, right? And so to tell someone, hey, I know you had this experience, but actually statistically, you're
Right.
safer. It's like that is not helpful. And so I think it's more of like, how do we reduce crime as much as possible? Like, the goal should always be zero. It's not going to get there, but that should be the goal, right? And that's what's so important about how you talk to people is like, for example, let me just give you another example. Boston, you'd appreciate this. The way you measure,
Mm.
not to get too academic, but the way you measure homicides typically in the city is per 100,000 people. So if you look
Okay.
at like Jackson, Mississippi, or some others, they're in the like 60s, 70s ish per 100,000. In Boston, it's 3.5. Okay, it's like
Okay.
the lowest in the country of a major city by a significant margin, or very close. New York is
Uh-huh.
4. It's like remarkable. And you actually look at like what happened in Boston, because Boston used to have a much higher rate. It's because they basically took the neighbor model and they made it completely. Uh, they made it a citywide model. So they took churchgoers, the clergy, they took the law enforcement, they took neighbors, and they figured out how do we engage as many people as possible to get to know each other as possible and to stop people from committing a crime. And so Boston wasn't always like that until they rolled that out. The exception that I have with the Trump administration is that they cut $180 million that would fund those kind of programs at work all across the country, right? And
Hmm.
so if you talk
Hmm.
about it in that way, I think people make sense. If you just yell at people and say you shouldn't feel unsafe because the numbers say that your eyes are lying to
Right.
you, that just doesn't help anybody.
It it's so interesting because it's all languaging. I mean, I always
Yeah.
said it for the party of that has most of the creative and writers and Hollywood people, they are
Yeah.
the worst at
It's
doing a
terrible.
slogan. Like
It's
it's
terrible.
like defund the police. I'm like, how could you think that that's like getting you where you need to go? Like in what
100%.
you wouldn't write the movie that way. Why would you do the slogan that way? Like it is always unbelievable to me. But I wanted to. So you're running for this position in Massachusetts. Will you live in D.C.? Will you live in Massachusetts? Do you go to D.C. and represent the people there? How does it work?
Yeah. So I live here, and in Andover. That's where I'm from,
Hmm.
where I grew up and where I have my house. You
Listen,
go down.
an Andover. Were they the Rockets? I think they were the. What were the high
That's
school
Reading. That's
mass?
Reading.
Reading
That's Reading.
Rockets.
Yeah.
Okay, that's
Yeah.
Reading. The same conference because I was Needham Rockets,
Got it.
and I
Got it.
know.
But yeah, it's usually it depends on the schedule. You're down there 3 or 4 nights a week. It's hard on families, but like
Yeah.
I think it's part of the job. Like and one of the things that I think happens to people who get elected to federal positions is that they get down to DC, they get up in the culture. There's all these like reasons and incentives. Like let me give you an example. Like there's so many corporations that will give directly to candidates and stuff like to give it to members of Congress, or like try. And I saw this in Boston. We had like very strict ethics rules around this. You just get caught up in this like DC world, and people forget and don't take seriously how important the local stuff is. So they get lost
Right.
in there. They never come back. I'm fortunate that I worked literally for a mayor who was formerly a state rep, and I was a select board member. So I am programmed to. I mean, look, I love going to little league games, and I love just like hanging out with people at the Dunkin' Donuts. Like
Right.
to me, that is far more meaningful than some like stupid wine
But
thing. And there's so
you're
much of that in
hovering around.
DC.
Right. You're hovering around something that I'm very curious about because what you're saying is like, and again, the parallels to comedy are like very clear to me, where it's like you're kind of speaking vaguely that like there's people that like are in it for another reason. Like there's and get taken over by that other stuff. And like it's hard to understand because like I was gonna ask you before we started, I was like, what's it like to come up at like I know you're not where you want to be ultimately. I just know that just because I just know that. I know I'm not where I want to be. I know you're not where you want to be because I'm not where I want to be. I don't want to be at a Hyatt house in the Richmond Mall, West Richmond.
Dude, those Hyatt houses are kind of good though. They get good breakfast.
They're pretty good. They serve a purpose. But
Yeah.
this
Scrambled
is the way
eggs are pretty good. Don't hate on the scrambled eggs there.
They had egg whites this morning. I couldn't
Ow.
believe it. I was like in shock. So I'm saying like it's not that I don't want to ever be here, but I appreciate the road that I'm taking, that I'm like, okay, I'm doing it the right way. I'm working on material in Richmond because I can go to DC next week and do a theater, and I want bigger and better things, and I'll be a better comedian because of doing Richmond, and I'll respect another comedian who does the Richmond Funny Bone in the same way because that's what I had to go through. I'm kind of sensing that with politics, and I didn't really think of that you probably look at some politicians, you're like, they did it the right, no matter what their outlook is, they do it the right way. They're doing it the way that I would do it. And then you might see people from different angles that you're like, they're not really doing it. Is that kind of a thing there? Is that kind of what you're?
Yeah. And like, there's a million very ambitious personalities in the elected official world. I'll tell you, it's just as bad when you work in the White House as you can imagine. Like,
right.
Like, let me give you like the stupidest example, but I didn't learn until I was in there. So you get to the White House. There's several tiers of prestige in your title. Okay. First, you're just in the White House. Then there is commissioned officers. By the way, the correlation between what you do and these titles are not that linked, but they kind of are. So like the first tier is you're a special assistant to the president. Okay.
Okay.
Then they call that SAP. That's SAP 2, and then SAP 1, you're still a special assistant, but you're paid a little more. So people are like, oh, is this person a SAP? Then if you get promoted, you're a deputy assistant to the president, which by the way, doesn't sound as good as special assistant. People get all insecure about that. Then if you're like the chief of staff, you're the assistant to the president. So everyone's like, oh my God, I'm like, and it's just ridiculous. But it's a good analogy for like how DC works. It's like, everyone's always like, oh my God, like what committee assignment am I on? Like, oh my God. But like, do you think the average person in your district is a flying about that, right? They don't. What they care about is that their passport isn't being processed on time. Right. Or you're busy hanging out, wondering about like what committee assignment you are. So like, we need a reset. And this is not just about my candidacy. Like, we need more people who are like into local politics, who understand that you can't ignore a phone call, that you have to text everyone back, that you have to make sure like, the liquor license is approved on time. Like, that's what people care about, right? And they don't even know what's federal jurisdiction versus what's state or city. Like, they just got a problem and you got to solve it. And so I think especially DC electeds get away with saying this, it's not my problem because I'm look at me, I'm hanging on DC. And like, that's just the complete opposite of who I am. And that's why I'm like, I care so much about wanting to go and change it, because I think you're more effective if you understand those values,
Right. It's so much like the Hunger Games that it's actually crazy. When they go to that, like, where that one town where like the big, like, the rich town, that's like the DC area.
Here's another example. You'll appreciate this. So, speaking of Hunger Games, there's two. If people say they work in the White House, there's two big there's multiple segments of the White House, but there's the West Wing, okay, which most people know when they've seen the show, whatever. And then there's the executive office building, which is a larger office building that's within the complex. You go through security once. That is like a big office building. Okay. It's beautiful, but it's a big office building. You get a badge, and if your badge is blue, it means that you can roll into the West Wing without an escort. But if your badge is green, you can't go in without an escort, which, as you can imagine, creates this like bullshit of people being like, oh, you have a green badge or like a blue badge or whatever. And so like, whether you have an office in the West Wing becomes this like big hunger. People give up big offices in the executive office building, so they get a desk. So they can say, so for me, I was like, okay, like I was fortunate to get promoted when I was in the White House. I was like, I'll give you the big office in the, like, I can just walk, it's not a big deal. But people are like, oh my God, like, you didn't want a desk. like to sit upstairs from the Oval Office? I'm like, no, because like that's just, but like that's how it gets, right? And so people just get in their bubbles down there,
It's
and
so
that's what,
little. It's so small. It's
and
so it's
nothing
all
of the,
about look.
and no one can. That's not making anybody safer. That's not giving anybody better health
Right.
care. And I think they don't. People may not know the intricacies of that, but that attitude is why people just look and just say, "Fuck this," right? Like,
Right.
I'm not even going to show up at the town hall because I know no matter what I say, they're going to give me word salad answers, and I'm never, and
Right.
that is what I am trying to change, and that I think is like what we need to be focused on. It's like not only are you focused on the right stuff, but you have the right mindset, and also you know how to communicate it in a way that people understand.
Okay, I'm gonna read this. This is I asked you on because I got a text, an
Yeah.
automated text, the text that we all are,
Sorry, buddy.
know that we
Sorry, buddy.
get. No, I'm happy I got it because that's why you're here right now. And I was like, listen, I think I can help if you're in Massachusetts. Here's the text. I'm gonna read it for the audience. I hate fundraising texts. It's always the same lame messaging and phony deadlines that make you reply stop as soon as possible. It's because Democrats in D.C. don't get it. They hold press conferences while Trump sends mass men to apprehend our neighbors, tramples our Constitution, and lines his own pockets while life gets more expensive for the rest of us. My name is Dan Coe, and I'm running for Congress in Massachusetts 6 to change that. I've seen government work at all levels, the White House, Boston City Hall, and Andover Town Hall. I know how to deliver on day one, and I don't back down from a fight. Donate to our campaign today, and I'll show you how effective Democrats can be. Let's go, Dan. Text stop to quit. I love that ending. I was like, that's a very specific
You got to give people
ending.
an out. You got to give people an out. Yeah.
I give them an out, but also text stop to quit. I don't quit nothing. Like that's a psychology play. I love this,
Yeah.
but it kind of it shows that you. I mean, to me, that text is an acknowledgement that we're not where we want to be. This is not the world we want to live in. But also, I'm not going to do it the same old way. Is that kind of what you're promising?
Yeah, absolutely. And people, I worked for, just so people know, I was Marty Walsh's chief of staff in City Hall. Now like friggin' 12 years ago. And I was deep in politics there, and I still didn't quite understand why politicians needed to get money. I didn't really understand how it all worked. But the reality is, like, if you say you have a message, if like, and like you and your work is you in a podcast, like you could be the funniest person in the world, but if you can't afford a Riverside subscription to do this interview, if you can't afford a microphone so that you actually can speak into something, in the case of a campaign, if you don't have the money to print a mailer or to buy an ad on TV, it'll be very hard for you to get your message through. And so I didn't have as much of an appreciation for the fact that these candidates have to do that. I just think the way so many people, like, I'm just trying to level with people. Like, you need to raise the money. It sucks. It's annoying, but you need to raise the money.
I'm putting the link in the description of this episode on all the platforms we put it out. So the link is there. If you want to support Dan's run, which, listen, I'm a huge fan of you. I'm just like, that's the thing. Like, I don't even know what you're running on. I was like, I just like this guy. I literally was like, and listen, but I've read your, I get your emails. I read them. I give I read them more than any other email I get, really. And I'm interested to hear your opinion because I also like, you're a smart guy you've been in this world, and this world is crazy. Like, it's like, and it gets so emotional. And like, I think, Michelle Wolf, who I opened for like a year, she used to always say, and she was on last week's episode, she would always say the only people that see the whole country are politicians and comedians. And she's so right. Like,
right.
And like, when we see the world, I don't think, like, I really do believe, and this isn't me being hokey or me being, naive, that we're like so close. Like, the people are so close. Like, the things that, like, the disagreements are like the way people live, the way people lead their lives, like, they're not that far away from one another. Like, it's really like, it's more simple than it's presented to be,
And it's a shame, like, right? Like and I don't mean to know your craft anywhere near as well as you do, but when you're in the audience and you're laughing, like, I'm not looking to see who's like MAGA on my right or left, right? I just want to laugh and escape. And that has been lost in politics. Like, there are very few people who, unfortunately, who go to political events or want to learn that doesn't get doesn't get divided very quickly. And I think, look, like there's a lot to learn about how government works. There's a lot to disagree about. But like
Mm.
my first boss was Ted Kennedy, and as a mailroom intern for him. And some of his best friends were, Orrin Hatch or others who were John McCain, who were Republicans who he highly disagreed with. There's absolutely no reason why you can't highly disagree with someone and also just have a good relationship with them.
What do you
And
think of the feedback? Sorry to interrupt, because what do you think of the
yeah, yeah.
feedback that like those people being friends, like that's them working against the people? Like that's
I
like
think
kind of
that's
like the new argument, like oh yeah, they all were working together, and it's like I don't
yeah.
know, that's like very conspiratorial to me. Like
I think it's I kind of what I would like it to be. It's not always this way, and I don't think every actor who's Republican or Democrat is like this. But I kind of amounted to like you're two sprinters on a track, right? And like
mm,
that's a bad analogy because that's like a zero sum, and I don't think zero sum is the case in politics. But like I'm gonna fight for what I believe in. I'm going to call you out if I think you're wrong. But just because I call you out does not mean that I should be attacking you personally, right?
mm,
Just because I highly disagree with you doesn't mean that I should make some statements about your family and stuff. And that happens
right,
all the time on both sides of the aisle, right? And
right,
like we need to stop that. And I think there's
right.
ways to do that. And I pride myself. I go on CNN. I debate Scott Jennings, and I went to Nashville and I debated Tommy Loren. And we've had a very like Tommy and I had an hour-long debate, and it was like intense. We talked about immigration, we talked about healthcare, what have you. With Scott Jennings, like it's again, we've probably debated now for 10 different episodes, hour-long times. But like at the end of the day, like that doesn't mean that I should just like storm off the set because he had a zinger that I didn't like. We get the fact that like, he worked for George W. Bush. I did not like George W. Bush. But there was a difference in my mind between George W. Bush and the way he proceeded and the way the culture that he set than what this president has, right? Like there's just like a vindictive streak to him and how he's proceeding to people he disagrees with that I just highly, highly object to. But that doesn't mean that I think that every moderate or every Republican is terrible. Especially does not mean that people who have opinions different than I in like my street should be people I don't talk to. Like, how are we going to proceed as a country if that's how we proceed on our street?
Right. And we have an advice question
Yep.
based on what you're saying right now. So I'm going to read this question, but I have a question that we're going to play a game because it's not every day. I got like a future, president in front of me. What a what that is my question first before I get to the emailer. I think it's a good idea. I was like, what do I talk to Dan about? But I was like, I feel like it's never gonna ask, do you think it would help? And I do want to, and I'm gonna ask this question to ask what people getting into politics, what their aspirations are. Like,
Yes.
because I think that's like lost. Like you're running for this position, so everyone thinks your aspiration is to be Massachusetts 6, selectman, but that's not your aspiration. What do you want to be? What's the dream?
Honestly, like, look, every person who gets into office, one of the funniest things that I hear politicians say is like, "I never thought I'd be a politician." It's like, come on. Like
Wow.
if you think you're gonna put your name on a sign and like run an election and like raise money and like dedicate your like it is just maybe there's some exceptions to that, but people love to be like, ah shucks. It's like, no, I actually genuinely believe, and I wouldn't be running if I didn't think so, that like given my experience at the federal level and the local level, and given how I focus on I think the things that matter, that I would be a better member of Congress than someone else who was running. Anyone who doesn't feel that way is shouldn't be running, right? Like it's like, at the end of the day,
Right.
it's one person getting elected. So I think you level with people and you say, for me, it's like I want to take the mentality that like every single request that I had in City Hall, whether it be a pothole or whether it be a piece of graffiti that needed to be cleaned, that I gave that attention to every single person and I would bring that to Congress. Meaning, whether it be a big healthcare bill, yes, I care that people get healthcare, but I also care there's someone calls me up and says, "Hey, you rolled out this new thing, and I don't even know where to go to get my form." That I'm going to call you back and I'm going to figure it out. And thankfully, because I worked as the deputy cabinet secretary, which means that you work with all the cabinets, I know exactly what department to go to help you, right? And so,
Mhm.
that's what drives me. Where that ends me up, I don't know, but that's what drives me to do it because I genuinely know. If you use a baseball analogy, I genuinely know that a replacement player at that role would not be as good at that than I am. Which I don't mean to disrespect. I understand how this works and I understand how to deliver for people. But like
Right.
also when what's so important about what you're doing right now is a lot of these politicians, especially on the Democratic side, are so buttoned up that they're afraid to go on shows that are 33 minutes long or what have you, because they have a certain set of talking points. And then the minute that doesn't happen, people get so scared that they're going to say something wrong and piss off
Right.
somebody that they just like hide with like the 2-minute hit on, a TV network, which is just like, how can you ever learn about somebody, what they stand for, if you hear them for 2 minutes every 3 weeks?
Well, that's why I think that's what cuts through the political
Mhm.
noise is like, oh, I know that guy. Like, I
Yeah.
think,
Yeah.
like, just like the neighbors thing. Like, oh,
Yeah.
I'm not going to kill my neighbor. I know my neighbor. They're not as,
Yeah.
scary to me anymore. Okay. I here's the question from a listener because it's on the subject of like everyone's evil if they don't agree with me completely. Ready? Jared, I live in New York City, matched with a guy on Hinge. He didn't have his political preferences in his bio, and I didn't think much of it at first. On one of our dates, he mentioned that he's moderate. In my mind, moderate has always meant I'm conservative but live in New York City and I'm too afraid to say it. I can't tell if he's actually moderate or just conservative, but I'm very liberal and my values definitely align with more progressive beliefs. And that's really important to me. I've also felt at times that someone who's very conservative might not respect my views or support me as a woman or feminist. I guess I'm stuck between thinking maybe he can still be a supportive partner even if we disagree and worrying that if he does hold conservative views, he probably doesn't really see women as equals deep down. Do you think this is a deal breaker in a relationship? Do you have to align politically to date someone, especially in today's political climate, or can you agree to disagree? Daniel Coe, what do you think?
Well, first of all, I didn't think I'd be doing still, I know your show, so I knew I'd maybe have some dating advice. But look,
Yeah.
I think of it this way. There are a lot of people who care deeply about social justice issues, who
Hmm.
believe in equality between genders, who don't like high taxes and think that government sucks. And so, like, I don't think that a label of a party affiliation, and there are some bad people in the Democratic Party, right? So I don't think that like party affiliation is the one bellwether. Having said that, I think that there is um, a very fair case to be made that if you are somebody who doesn't believe in, making sure that women have the healthcare access that they need, or that that women have equal pay, or that women should, that when you have a baby that there's the parent, like in this day and age, like just parenting is just really friggin' hard, that like
Yeah.
men have a clear role to play here. And then also like an equal role to play, I should say. And then finally, that you can't be understanding about the challenges that women in the workplace have right now. And I'm not just saying from sexual harassment, but just like, some companies like don't have maternity leave, right? And
Hmm.
they're unabashed about it. And so like how as a woman do you deal with that when, one of the things I learned when I had 2 young kids from my wife that I just experienced firsthand is like it's such a physical burden on her after having a baby on
Hmm.
top of the baby. And so, look, I think we could talk very long about this. I think it's where your values are and how you view the partnership that you have and whether you view that partnership as equal and that you understand the challenges, candidly, that both sides of the partnership are going through. And
Well,
I think that's really important. And that could be conservative or liberal. And there's people who are taking the wrong tact on both sides.
yeah, I gotta say, like, it's funny, like I'm listening to you and I'm like, you're exactly you're giving the examples that this person needs to get into. Like
Yeah.
vague saying I'm a moderate is like to me saying I'm a Patriots fan. Like,
Yep.
okay, well, okay, so what do you think in 2001? Where were you when you were watching, the Patriots win, their first Super Bowl? And they go, "Oh, I wasn't even
Yeah.
I just kind of became a fan." And you go,
Yeah.
okay, well, now we've gotten specific. Like, I think the unfair thing to do is when you say, I'm a moderate, this person went from I'm a moderate and they may not believe in my rights being as equal to theirs. I'm like, whoa. Like if I was the person saying
Yeah.
I'm a moderate, I'd be like, wow, how did we get here? What? And again, like I think like bringing up the examples that you brought up, like, well, the minute you get specific and there's a respect in the conversation about these specific things, you start to learn about the person. So is it like, could it never work out? I don't know. I just think
Well,
in this specific example, he said, I'm a moderate and hasn't been asked any further questions. Like you got to ask
like,
for, I think you got to get specific about the things you care about.
and also just actually walk the walk and not talk the talk. Like the thing that like my wife is named Amy. I love her, and she keeps me out of trouble most of the time. But what I struggle with is this time around, as I run for the next 11 months or whatever it is, we have
Mm-hmm.
2 young kids. We have a 5 and a 2-year-old. And there will be times, and she is general counsel of a company. There will be times where you can't do both. Somebody has to sacrifice, right? Somebody has to say,
Right.
I can't do this meeting, or I can't go to the town hall, or I can't go to the debate, or I can't meet with a donor, or whatever it is. And that is zero sum. Sometimes parenting is you just like you can't balance. There's no such thing as work-life balance in many cases, right?
Right.
And so in my mind, and I don't always do this well, and if Amy were on with me, she would probably tell you this. Like you need to be willing to say, if this is an equal partnership, that like I'm going to do something that would be against my individual career self-interest because we are an equal partner and you have to go on a trip to, her founder's based in San Francisco. Like, if you're going to be gone for 3 days, I can't go out at night and go to the town hall where the other probably 10 people who will be in this race will be. And that will hurt my ability to be elected a member of Congress. But I need to be thoughtful enough, and it's easy for me to say in a vacuum now, that like
Right.
that's just the reality of sacrifice. And that's not a Republican or Democratic thing. That's just a values thing.
Right. Well, I mean, to take it back to the email, like, can you have that conversation where you're make someone feel seen and heard on the thing that you're like, I'm on the other side on this
Right.
one. And it might
Yep.
but it might not even be that extreme. Like I think this person, especially considering this email, they've taken a label that someone's given themselves and I think most people put the label on just to make it more simple. Like they don't even know what topics you're really caring about. Like you got to get into those. Especially if you've been on a few dates, another date where you're trying to get to know them is like part of that. That's part of that's fourth date conversation. Hey, what do you think about healthcare? Like, like I think you could get into that. I have another game I want to play. You ready?
Let's do it.
Okay, then we'll get out of here. Everyone go get involved with Daniel Coe. And the link is in the bio of this episode. We want everyone to go support Daniel and what he's doing and, check it out. And like, your email is great. I gotta say, I read it and I'm like, I feel more thoughtful about what's going on, not even living in Massachusetts right now. So I want to play a game called King of the World. Okay.
Okay.
I'm going to give you a subject. You're king of the world. You can say the one thing you'd do if you were king of the world. And I think a lot of people in politics, like, if they could just be king of the world, maybe the job would be a lot easier. Okay, ready? Trains. What would you do with trains if you're king of the world?
Well, first and foremost, I think just making them on time. I understand that there's a million reasons why they're not, but I would rather have a slower train that I know is going to arrive at South Station at 5:30 every single day than some like bullet train. We love talking about, oh, well, Japan has this and we don't have that. I will tell you, realistically speaking, we need to think big, but like there's a lot of poor communities that would have to like move their houses to like redo the infrastructure. I'm not saying we shouldn't be ambitious, but like we do have limitations we need to be aware of. But there's no reason why we shouldn't be thoughtful as possible about timeliness and predictability. By the way, that's what pisses me off about the tariffs is there is a very convincing argument to be made. There are industries in the United States, for example, like your semiconductor chips that need to have tariff policy to like protect American interests, right? But if you're just like pulling out of your ass numbers,
Right.
that and you make it up and you tweet about it, people can't predict in the markets like what you're going to do, and so people just start raising prices because they don't know how to correct for what might Trump say the next day, right? And so like on the train example, I would just make them ultra predictable, that I know that if I'm going to call my wife and say, okay, I'm getting on the train right now, I will be there at 45 and like then I'll pick up the kids. I think that's what really pisses people off is when they're promised something and they clearly don't get it, right? Like that's what I
I
think really pisses people off.
I love that. My train king of the world would be I would go get the menu from the European trains and I would just bring it over to the
You know,
US. Like,
you know what the other thing I would do? I would make the bathroom sliding door not fly open when you're trying to close it.
okay, forget mine. Yours wins. I have
Because that is
been
always my biggest fear. You go in there, you're already be thrown around like a rag doll. But then like
all it takes is to take one of those like hooks and a little like
Exactly.
like it's literally like 3 items from Harvey's Hardware and Needham where it's like you like literally like screw into the door. All I want is a hook lock. I don't want the button lock. I'm with you 1,000%. I have been taking a shit on a train and had it slide open. And it's like the most embarrassing thing that's ever happened to you in your entire. It happened to me. Okay.
You ever look into a bathroom after as people are getting off a train at like South Station? It looks like a nuclear bomb went off in there because people can't balance themselves. It's like
There's nothing
anyway.
dirtier. There's nothing dirtier in the entire world. You're right. Okay.
Yeah.
Roads. What would you do?
Oh, that's a good one.
You're king of
Um,
the world. You can do one thing for the roads.
it is so. Oh, well, I'm from New England, so I'm biased towards cold weather issues. And it's so expensive, which is the reason why they don't do it. But I would have like solar paneled roads that would melt the snow automatically when there was over a certain number of inches. Because
Does
what
that
happens now,
exist?
it does exist. And so actually there's some countries that have done that in some ice. The problem is cost. It's just too expensive. But you could in theory do it in a way where like literally like, 5 inches of snow falls down, you flip a switch, it heats up and it melts the snow. It's just too expensive to do. But if you think about how effective that could be if you were able to do it, like that's pretty cool.
What country does that?
There's some European country that I saw it. Well, then again, there's no like extensive system, but like there are some areas
Right.
where you'll see it.
I love that. Mine was going to be to take away all fast express lanes because they take up one full lane just to divide the regular lane from the fast lane.
Well, I would say, I mean, but this is another example of like you tell people what research says and they don't believe it. The research says that if you do that, then like people carpool more. But I think people just get very frustrated and inconvenienced really fast if you do that, right? Um, and by the way, the same way like people complain about potholes and roads is another cost thing. Like you could have better quality asphalt, and I'm a nerd about this because I dealt with it in City Hall for a while. It's just more expensive and it's just very hard to do. And if something breaks, like there's kind of a standard, um, like relatively affordable from a city perspective, like process to fill a pothole. You start putting more like this is getting really wonky, but you start
I
doing like
love it.
specialty thing, it gets like very complicated very fast.
Okay.
The other
Debates.
thing.
Go
Wait.
ahead,
I just one more
please.
thing about roads. Like you also like some roads some of these streetlights can be programmed where like they actually see if there's anybody standing there before they switch the lights in the walk symbol. And so like sometimes you're sitting there and like there's a walk symbol and no one's
Yeah.
around and you're just standing there. Like there's ways to avoid that if you have like smart systems and stuff like that. As a matter
See,
of fact,
this is
there's a last nerdy thing. Listen to this. So
please.
when I was
I'm
there
this is interesting.
in 2014, we had a very early version of using Waze data that people use to like do GPS tracking to feed directly into the street lights so that if like we knew it was peak rush hour, you would hold the green light longer when people were trying to get onto the tunnel in I-93 South, right? And so like there's a way to do that like on steroids, you know? So
This is
that's
like
stuff you could do.
this is my dad's like wet dream. Like he's been talking about the lights not being timed right my whole life.
Yes.
It's like
And so
all
there's a way. Our tests on this had reduced traffic by 15 to 20% just by doing the lights better. I think
oh my God, wait till my dad finds
everyone's
out
been,
about how much does that cost? I mean, is it so cost prohibitive? That's why?
no, it's actually relatively affordable, but when to get it really good, there's like some technology. Like everyone sat at a light and there's like no other person going on the other side and you're sitting at a red and it's like, why is this light not green? You can be smarter about it.
That seems like it's from the year 3000, and I'm like it's like from the year 3020, and I'm like,
Yeah.
it can happen tomorrow. Okay, we'll do one more. I was gonna say debates. What would you do change about debates?
That's a good one. Look, again, everyone is very eager for like the mic drop moment so that you put the 40-second thing on social media. Look,
Yeah.
sometimes there's like a fair thing and fair argument to do on that, but like again, the harder thing to do is a mic drop moment where there is substantive explanations of why whatever someone is saying is wrong. I think there's too much of like, well, you're XYZ, you
Mm.
label someone something. Like my proudest moments when I'm debating someone like Scott Jennings, because he's actually quite a good debater, is to be like, okay, you say you care about healthcare, but like, 30% of kids or something like that in Kentucky, I'm ballpark, is on Medicaid, and that means that like this many kids might not get healthcare anymore, right? Like to me, that is far more interesting, but more challenging to do than to just be like, you don't care about healthcare, right? Like that could be a mic
Right.
drop moment, right? Oh, look at this guy. He didn't care at all about kids being healthy. But like, I genuinely believe, and maybe this gets me into trouble, I genuinely believe Scott Jennings wants his kids to have good healthcare, right? Like, so like,
Right.
uh, you know, there's some people who will say, no, he doesn't. He's a horrible person. Well, like I think most people wouldn't buy that. And so I would try to figure out a way to like force or incent people to actually make data and fact-based arguments versus just like what they consider to be red meat that they can put online before you even leave the podium and be like, oh, got him.
Right. I would do a different subject every night of the week, have debate week, and have
That's
it
cool.
judged by regular everyday Jims and Joes.
I love it. I love it. That's a good idea.
That's it. Okay. So okay. Last one, internet. What would you change about the internet?
It's like stunning to me, and this is actually happening right now with Riverside, so I apologize this is happening. That like in this day and age, like there's still like slow to load stuff. Like
Oh, dude,
it
story
like
of my life.
I feel like we got to a point. And by the way, I have something more to say about this. Like in a place where there is broadband, we got to a point where like it was so much better than the dial up, but then we like never
Mhm.
got better, right? Like
Right.
it's still like we got like in the over like 20 years ago, we went from like 56K it used to be like 14K, then 56K, and then it just kind of like, and then it was cables. Oh my god, cable modem. But then like it never got better. Like it's still bad. Like you're blurry to me right now. I know it's recording
Right. It's
locally,
my
but
fault.
like
I think it's the hotel internet. It's
but you would
definitely on
think at
my
a
end.
certain point it would like continue that way. It's like people who hate the fact that like Madden, the PlayStation or Xbox game, like still acts like it was, and like the graphics are still the same that they were 10 years ago. Like at some point we like stopped progressing as a society when it comes to that stuff. Now, the interesting thing is like I didn't fully appreciate until I got to the Biden administration and the hundreds of billions they invested in this. Like there's still a lot of people around this country who don't even have broadband internet. They have cable and dial up, and there was never
Right.
an investment to even give them that. And so I want to be thoughtful about what I say when it comes to that. But regardless, like we got to a certain point of technology and it seems like it's just kind of like stopped. And you think the pace we were going, you would have asked me like, oh man, like we went from 14K to like cable modem in like 5 to 7 years. And like you would think that now would be like seamless, but it's not.
Right. And honestly, like I don't even know how much better it could be. So it's like you
Right.
don't know, like I to me I'm like this is great. We can do a podcast while I'm in Richmond and you're in Massachusetts. Like this is like the best thing ever. But then when it like stalls out, I'm like, huh, I guess I'll deal with
Or
it.
like
Like
cell
we just kind of
service,
deal
right?
with it.
You think with cell service 10, 15 years ago, you're like, oh my God, I have a cell phone I can put in my pocket. Okay, I can drop calls. But like it still happens all the time. Like in a place where you have full bars, all of a sudden the next day you can't make a call, right? It's like you think it would get better.
Right.
5G, yeah, it's faster, but like I still think I still have same cell service problems that I had 10 years ago?
I wouldn't let anyone below the age of 18 on the internet. I would say that's
Yeah.
my change. I would go the fact that you could be arguing in a comment section with a 15-year-old is crazy and not know it is crazy. Like that's what a 15-year-old is built to do, to like anger adults. Like if I
No,
was
I'm with
15,
you.
I'd just be in the comment section being like just throwing haymakers and they have no idea.
Well,
I'm like, "Oh, can you believe they don't know they're talking to I'm a kid. I'm just fucking with adults." That's
it's interesting
also
that
the
you say
bots
that
and
because
things like that.
I want to give a shout out to Jake Alkencloss, who is a member of Congress in
Mm,
Massachusetts. He's been one of the leaders of legislation to remove smartphones from kids in schools, right? Like he's doing this
mm,
in a thoughtful way. And what struck me, and like as I have little kids, appreciate this further. Like, there are kids who are pretty young who have, like, full-blown smartphones, right? And, like, and who, like, a lot of parents are just trusting the tech companies to, like, not serve them bad content. It's like, can you imagine if you and I grew up with, like, the kind of shit that's on the internet these days, and we were 5 and we had full access to a phone? Like, holy shit, you know? So, like, I think, you know, there's, like, civil liberty stuff, but, like, I think everyone can agree that, like, a 7-year-old should not have access to full-blown internet and a smartphone. But, like,
No, right.
there are schools that allow that, and people are sitting in class, like, playing Candy Crush and then, like, going on YouTube like, unfiltered. That's, like, a huge challenge for parents. And so, like, we need to take these things seriously. And, like, while we're busy talking about all this stuff and yelling at each other, like, our kids are getting exposed to stuff that, like, parents should have a say in. And
Mm.
I didn't quite appreciate that as much until I started having kids, and I kind of saw it firsthand.
Daniel Coe, thank you for coming on. My
Thank
light
you,
just
man.
ran out of battery. This has been so interesting. I'm so happy you came on. The link is in the bio of this episode where you can give to Daniel's campaign and what he's doing in Massachusetts. I'm Jared Freid every Wednesday. Chit Chat Wednesday, back next week. Boom.